Presentation, Mr. Andrew Orrell from EIA, Section Head of Waste and Environmental Safety. Mr. Andrew Orrell about ARTEMIS. Please, sir.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a very great pleasure to be here, in particular in this unique setting, which, with apologies to William Shakespeare, I am compelled to ask, to be or not to be safe? That is not a question. So, over the next few minutes, I'd like to provide you an overview of the IAEA Review and Advisory Services, the ARTEMIS Radioactive Waste Management and Decommissioning Review Service in particular, and how this service has been manifested in support of the European Commission's Waste Directive. I'd also like to take this opportunity to recognize the support and the extra budgetary contribution of the European Commission to facilitate the development and implementation of the ARTEMIS Review Service, as well as their much appreciated support of providing observers in each of the Waste Directive reviews. Thank you, Michael. To begin, since 1957, at the dawn of the nuclear age, the International Atomic Energy Agency, or the IAEA, has sought to accelerate and enlarge the contribution of atomic energy to peace, health, and prosperity throughout the world. Among its many functions granted by the authorizing statute, the IAEA seeks to foster the exchange of scientific and technical information on the peaceful uses of atomic energy, and to establish or adopt standards of safety for protection of health and the minimization of danger to life and property, and provide for the application of these standards to any of a member state's activities in the field of atomic energy. However, an unavoidable aspect of enlarging the contribution of atomic energy is the concomitant need to efficiently and safely manage radioactive waste and spent fuel, including that arising from the decommissioning of nuclear facilities. As a part of fulfilling its mandate for the promotion of nuclear energy and safe radioactive waste management, the IAEA offers member states numerous expert peer review services related to the peaceful uses of nuclear science and technology. Indeed, the IAEA offers its member states a wide array of review services in which an IAEA-led team of experts compares actual practices with IAEA standards in, for example, nuclear safety and security, energy and safeguards, or even the health sector. The review services noted here, which are shown in approximate order of popular demand by the member states, covers the whole of the nuclear fuel cycle, each more or less focused on a particular aspect of the adoption or consequences of nuclear technologies or nuclear power. Some review services focus on the regulatory body, others on the operator or technical service organization, and still others concern themselves with the whole of a member state's strategy and policy. Certainly some examples are the OSART reviews, which look at operational safety, the IPASS advisory services, which look specifically at issues of physical protection, the IRRS missions that take an in-depth look at the function of a regulatory body. But I'm here today to discuss one of the more recently formed review services, and that is the ARTEMIS. So what is ARTEMIS Review Service? Really, only the name is new. Building on many years of experience in conducting peer reviews in the field of radioactive waste management, decommissioning, and remediation, it was decided some years ago to give a brand name recognition to the organization of these reviews and to distinguish it from the other review service subjects. And thus the ARTEMIS Review Service was launched. As the whole of radioactive waste and spent fuel management, decommissioning, and environmental remediation are organized in two separate departments within the IAEA, those being the Department of Nuclear Energy and the Department of Nuclear Safety and Security, the respective Deputy Director Generals of each department drafted and signed an internal office memorandum to officially launch ARTEMIS in 2013. Based on the IAEA safety standards, technical guidance, and international good practice, ARTEMIS aims to assist in improving organizational performance relating to the issues under review in member states and to contribute to an increased national and international confidence in their activities. ARTEMIS is structured such that, based on the request of the member state, a review can be organized around any of several domains, such as national policy, disposal, decommissioning, remediation, etc., and scoped to any of several topics, such as implementation of safety, technical programs, waste inventories, financing schemes, etc. The point is, we have a high degree of adaptability for the review mission to ensure each is tailored to the unique circumstances of the member states' realities for providing safe spent fuel and radioactive waste management, while still ensuring all pertinent aspects are addressed in the review. An ARTEMIS peer review is managed according to a set of well-developed guidelines and practices. In consultation with the requesting member state, IAEA staff draft a terms of reference that helps guide the review scope, aids in the selection of approximately 3 to 7 independent international experts to serve as the review team, and sets the stage for all the logistical and administrative issues to be dealt with. In general, we expect the requesting member state organization to complete a self-assessment and to provide a priori to the review mission itself documentation that supports the review scope. Once all the preparatory matters are addressed and the review team has had a chance to consider the review documentation, we schedule the on-site review mission to occur over the course of about a week of very long hours, which ends with a draft of the review mission report before the exit meeting. Over the next couple months, we finalize the review mission report and provide it to the member state counterpart. As with all such mission reports, we strongly encourage the final report be made publicly available. As a review report is the final product of the ARTEMIS review service, I'll note that all reports are comprised of only recommendations, suggestions, and the identification of good practices. Recommendations are made when there is a clear shortcoming in compliance with the letter or intent of the corresponding requirement of an IAEA safety standard. And in the case of the EC Waste Directive, recommendations may also be used to identify issues over compliance with the requirements of the directive, which we'll look at in a few moments. In principle, recommendations carry the expectation for action by the member state. Suggestions are identified where there is opportunity for improvement not directly related to inadequate conformance with an IAEA safety requirement, and the member state may want to consider new or different approaches to an issue. And finally, good practices are those aspects that the review team wishes to encourage the member state to maintain and that are worthy of sharing with the broader community. We maintain a public-facing website for all of the ARTEMIS activities, and I encourage anyone with more interest in the details to make their way to the website address noted here. There is also a contact point where anyone may request answers to specific questions or consultation on the review process overall. From the beginning, the ARTEMIS Review Service has been mindful of the European Commission's Council Directive of 2011, or simply the EC Waste Directive. The EC Waste Directive was adopted for establishing a community framework for the responsible and safe management of spent fuel and radioactive waste, including that arising from decommissioning. Yep, that's article. Notably, among its many requirements, the EC Waste Directive calls for EU member states to invite international peer review of their national framework, the competent regulatory authority, and/or the national program. The call for international peer review is with the expressed aim of ensuring that a high standard of safety is achieved. The outcomes of any peer review shall be reported to the Commission for their own purposes and to the other member states, and may be made available to the public, barring proprietary or security concerns. This directive set the stage for a number of ARTEMIS peer review requests, to which I'll provide the status of in a few moments. In the previous slide, I noted the EC Waste Directive calls for a review of 2 or 3 components, which are elaborated in additional articles of the directive. Thus, in response to the Waste Directive review request, the ARTEMIS reviews need to be mindful of these specific requirements and expectations for a review of these components. In the case of the national framework, the Waste Directive expects it to provide, and the ARTEMIS review will consider, whether there is the existence of a national program and national policy, the arrangements for safe management of spent fuel and radioactive waste, the existence of a licensing system, including control, inspections, and enforcement, the allocation of responsibilities to licensees, the requirements for public participation, and of course, financing. The scope of this national framework review is incorporated into the ARTEMIS terms of reference between the requesting member state and the IAEA. Got cut off there. Likewise, with the review of the competent regulatory authority, we must contemplate their independence from other organizations which may have a more promoting role, and whether the regulatory authority has the necessary legal, human, and financial resources to effectively implement its regulatory function in assuring safety. Occasionally, the IAEA's Integrated Regulatory Review Service may have recently reviewed in detail the member state's regulatory authority, and if so, the ARTEMIS review can be structured to take credit for that review or vice versa. As with the other articles, the ARTEMIS review is structured to confirm the expectations of the national program, ensuring in part that the national policy has clear objectives with milestones and timeframes for implementation of spent fuel or radioactive waste management policy. That there is a clear current and projected waste inventory existing, including that arising from decommissioning. That concepts and plans exist for spent fuel and radioactive waste from generation to disposal, including the post-closure period of a disposal facility. That any R&D needs are identified, and that assessment of cost and financing schemes do exist. As you can see, some of the requirements are moderately subjective, and others are quite objective in their expectations. The ARTEMIS reviews must also consider providing consistency in the rigor of the evaluations among all member states. So where are we now with the ARTEMIS reviews and the Waste Directive ones in particular? Shown here are the ARTEMIS reviews completed and requested to date. Of the 28 EU member states subject to the Waste Directive, we have completed 6 thus far. 18 are in formal planning or in discussion on their requests, and only 5 are still need to be scheduled once requested. While the Waste Directive is a major impetus for requesting ARTEMIS reviews, the ARTEMIS review service is also open to all member state organizations, government or commercial. The reviews highlighted in red are just such reviews. Sogin, the Italian organization responsible for decommissioning, has completed 2 requested reviews on decommissioning approaches and planning. And the Brazilian EURADWASTE organization requested and completed a review of waste characterization methods. Unofficially, we know that Slovakia will request an ARTEMIS mission sometime in 2020, and Austria will probably request sometime in 2022. And finally, it's reasonable to ask, so what have we learned thus far? The European Commission is responsible for deciding the general state of affairs regarding the safety of spent fuel and radioactive waste management practices across the EU member states, and based on the national reports of their member states, possibly augmented with the results of the ARTEMIS Waste Directive reviews. It is a bit premature for the IAEA to make broad generalizations on whether the objectives of the Waste Directive are being fulfilled across the EU. However, I do note that thus far, all Waste Directive member state reviewees have taken the requirements and expectations of the Waste Directive seriously and with deliberate intent to promote a high level of safety. This is clear, even though each member state has unique conditions and circumstances in the implementation of their national framework, the competent regulatory authority, or their national program. Despite these natural differences, the IAEA is working to ensure all of the EC Waste Directive reviews provide a high standard of quality and efficiency in terms of cost and time. Further, it is the desire of the IAEA that we deliver a consistent review experience in the planning, performance, and reporting of the ARTEMIS reviews, and that the review results are of high quality, with value to both the member state and the European Commission. I look forward in the coming 2 or 3 years, when all of the Waste Directive ARTEMIS reviews should be completed, to providing you even greater assurance that the safety of spent fuel and radioactive waste management is well in hand, with demonstrably high levels of safety achieved thoroughly and completely across the member states of the European Union. Thank you very much for your time and attention.